Welcome back, YouTube. We got Sunny V2 here. This video caught my interest and I wanted to watch it. Apparently, some guy went on Joe Rogan's podcast and then 38 days later they unalive someone. This is crazy.
On the 1st of February 2024, Sheldon Johnson appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience. 38 days later, he was arrested and charged with murder. It was episode.
Why does he laugh? I'm not laughing at that. Dude, this is like he looks like Walter White. Walter White, that's
It was episode
Heisenberg came in my mind. I was just like,
2096 with Joe Rogan, Sheldon Johnson, and another person named Josh Dubin. Josh had been on the podcast 6 different times before, explaining on an earlier episode that he was a lawyer who worked with wrongfully convicted felons.
We're here to get the word out about wrongful convictions.
In 3 out of 6 of Josh's appearances, he'd bring these wrongful convicts to tell their story.
He spent 3 decades in jail for murders that he didn't commit.
So when Josh brought
no, no. He brings someone on for wrongful conviction, and then that guy just murks someone.
in Sheldon Johnson, it seemed this would be another positive episode, but it quickly
He looks very unassuming, man. I guess. Yeah, you can't really tell, can you?
became apparent that Sheldon was slightly different.
I figured we'd do something a little bit different. Typically, the person sitting to my right is
Oh no, they actually knew he did it.
someone that was wrongfully convicted. Sheldon is guilty.
Sheldon had only just been released from a 25-year prison stint, but Josh had brought him on specifically as an example of someone who'd been given an unfair amount of time, believing Sheldon never deserved his 25 years in prison. Well, you can be the judge.
No. Jesus, man. I wonder how that guy feels. This dude. Wonder how he feels. Like, he brought someone on, thought that they did too much time and they learned from their mistakes, and
Believing Sheldon
Jeez.
never deserved his 25 years in prison. Well, you can be the judge of that. Born 1975, Sheldon Johnson grew up in the Martin Luther King Jr. Towers.
yo, that's crazy, man. Sorry, a bit off track, but I remember when 3D maps became a thing on Google Maps, and it was so crap compared to this. This is a lot different.
aka a poverty-stricken housing project in Harlem, New York City. His entire family tree had been in and out of prisons.
My father was incarcerated. He did about 15 years. I was incarcerated. My grandfather was incarcerated. My great-grandfather was a slave. And my son killed somebody when he was 12 years old.
While Sheldon was the only one in his family who had functional hearing.
My mother's deaf, my father's deaf, my sister's deaf, my aunt is deaf. I grew up in a deaf household.
Therefore, his father, a drug dealer, brought Sheldon along to help him translate deals, and by the age of 12, Sheldon had joined the exact same line of work.
I started selling drugs. Guy offered me an opportunity to be a lookout, and I would just stand there, and eventually I just slowly moved up the ranks. It turned me into this person that I was never meant to be.
As a result, he began to rack up charges.
Driving without a license, standing on the corner, little small petty drug cases.
And spent most of his teens in the Rikers Island prison.
That's terrible, man. Bad spawn points, man. Bad spawn points, but like, I wonder what actually happened for him to do it again. Like, was it like a wrong deal, or like someone came after him and it was like self-defense or something?
Although it'd be after his release at the age of 21 that things went downhill badly. He'd commit 2 different armed robberies, receiving a sentence of 50 years in prison, which Josh argued was incredibly unfair, given only one person received minor injuries.
He got hit in the head with the gun right here on the side of his head, and he got 2 stitches, and they gave me 25 years for that case.
Did you hit him in the head?
No.
Regardless, prison is where Sheldon realized he had
Hit in the head like what? Like pistol whipped him or like shot him? Because if he was just pistol whipped on the head, that's crazy. 25 years. I guess it stacks because it's like a deadly weapon still. It's assault with a deadly weapon, but like...
Had to turn his life around.
It was at that moment I really said I have to change my life. I just can't do this.
Beginning a prison journal about hope, change, and reform. In his entry letter to my younger self, it explained just because you're surrounded by violence does not mean that violence is the way to solve your problems. Sheldon, 2 wrongs do not make a right. Violence only begets violence. Learn how to respond and not react. In a different entry,
Okay, I can see like this being like a self-defense thing. Like he's just carrying a firearm. Or like yeah, I could see it as a self-defense. If he's like changed and then he's just got that old habit of carrying around like a unregistered firearm, and then something actually does happen, like old gang members or something, and then he has to defend himself.
he'd state, "As we know, I'm currently in prison, which I have learned does one of 2 significant things to its occupants. Brings the best out of them or the worst."
I saw individuals who were at their worst, and I saw guys who were at their best. The guys who were at their best were guys who were involved in education, post-secondary education programs.
Realizing the role model prisoners were those with an education, Sheldon spent years educating himself.
I got into school, I got my GED, and then I went on to obtain my bachelor's in behavioral science from Mercer.
Damn,
I
a
stopped smoking
bachelor's.
weed, I stopped smoking cigarettes. I started working in the law library. I discovered
Okay, I'm starting to see this as like a old habit, and then an accident happens, or like someone runs up on him, and he reacts to it. But like, it could be like all like smoke and mirrors, and then he's just a bad person anyway.
that I had a knack for complicated things, case law, and I was actually helping guys get out of prison.
He'd further add to his journal, "I have grown dramatically in these 14 years, when I could have easily withered away. I've learned that I love Shakespeare, that I love acting, that I love writing, that I enjoy reading philosophy, that I love
Shakespeare.
reading criminal law, that I love writing
I'm sorry, but I recently found out that Americans don't study Shakespeare, which is wild to me, because like I know he's British, but like he's such a prominent writer. I thought it would be like up there, but to like learn in like English class, but apparently they don't. But for you Americans in the UK, we learn Shakespeare. We learn Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, maybe Hamlet, depends which school, but it's mainly Romeo and Juliet. And dude, we get sick and tired of Romeo and Juliet. We've been learning Romeo and Juliet since forever, since like primary school, like early. We it, back then it would be like we'd watch the movies, like the Leonardo DiCaprio movies, and then later on we'll write about it and actually read the screenplay and stuff like that.
legalese. Sheldon had changed his life to such an extent, BuzzFeed advocated for his release back in 2016. He became a model inmate, said David Roth, the prison social worker. His days were so full that he went to bed exhausted and fell asleep immediately. As a result of his good behavior, Sheldon was released after 25 years of his 50-year sentence, appearing on a podcast called Success After Lockdown, on which he'd implied that he'd never go back to prison.
I'm reflecting, I'm saying to myself like, yo, I can't spend the next 50 years like this.
When he'd appear on Joe Rogan 1 month later, Sheldon again implied that he wouldn't go back to jail.
Individuals who have been shown to acquire associate's degrees and bachelor's degrees are like 92% less likely to return back to prison.
With Josh using Sheldon as
Okay, this is solidifying my theory, but we'll see. We'll
an
see.
example, that change was always possible.
How do you make change happen? He's living it and making it happen. Look at this beautiful mind and how he articulates himself.
He began
Jesus, talk about aging like milk.
working for the Queen's Defenders, helping troubled youth,
I'm trying to catch these kids before they fall, and I want to show them the way.
and even began to consider more formal education,
Sheldon asked me, should I go to law school before we came here?
in the process expressing his disbelief that he'd turned his life around.
I just came from the bowels of hell. 25 years in prison, and now I'm in the sky above the clouds in the heavens, headed to a destination to talk about change and to talk about all of the things that brought me to this place today.
Joe Rogan even posted a clip titled, "Sentenced to 50 years, Sheldon Johnson decided to turn his life around." However, Sheldon would make one final important claim.
But this is how fast your life can change from just one simple mistake.
Okay.
This became reality only
It's
38
solidifying
days
it,
later.
yeah.
He claimed that he had turned his life around after spending most of his adult life in prison. In fact, last year, he started working for the Queen's Public Defender's Office. Well, now he is accused of killing a man and then dismembering his body.
Jesus.
Sheldon was childhood friends with a man named Colin Small, with whom he'd also spent over 10 years in prison. Therefore, upon Sheldon's release, Small was helping Johnson get back on his feet. However, at some point, their friendship took a turn. On the 6th of March 2024, police received a call from a tenant who lived in New York, claiming to have heard 2 gunshots from Colin Small's apartment, as well as a voice begging, "Please don't, I have a family." Police drove over to the flat and knocked on the door, only to find Sheldon Johnson inside, who claimed that Colin Small had apparently gone upstate. Well, police searched the apartment and found half of Colin Small's body, finding the other half back at Sheldon's apartment, in addition to concrete and a Tyvek suit. CCTV outside
Jesus,
Colin's
man.
apartment showed Sheldon Johnson entering and exiting, trying to conceal his identity with a range of different disguises. In one of these stills, he's seen wearing the exact same jacket as he was in a photo he took for the Queen's Defenders. Sheldon was therefore arrested and charged with Colin's murder, screaming "I'm innocent" as he was placed into the cop car. Sheldon maintained this innocence all the way to court.
Well, are you innocent? This is at that guy's apartment. Unless, like, he was invited there and then something else happened. A fight broke out. But it seems like he just went there. Like, killed him. And if you're innocent, why are you chopping him up? Like...
Yesterday, Sheldon Johnson pleaded not guilty to the charges. He had quite a few supporters inside the courtroom.
As the comments on his episode changed overnight. Imagine being locked up for being wronged by the system for over 25 years, only to prove that the system was right. Amazing. The judge who gave him 50 years must feel pretty smart right now. "I really believed I was gonna die in prison." Well, you're not wrong, buddy. Sheldon's own father stated, "I'm surprised my son was arrested. I was shocked. He learned and studied in prison for 26 years. He is a good man. He was doing work in a law office. There were no problems, but I doubt nobody was as shocked as Josh Dubin." He
Yeah.
ended Sheldon Johnson's episode stating,
I'm very thoughtful in who I bring on. I think this was one of the best ones yet.
but is still yet
No, poor guy, man. Poor guy. He staked his reputation on him.
to talk publicly since Sheldon's new allegations. Joe, on the other hand, talked about it recently.
He was guilty before, and we knew he was guilty, but he got 50 years.
Right.
And then he was talking about he turned his life around, and this like a month after he was on the podcast, cut some dude's head off. Homie didn't understand new HD security cameras.
Theorizing that prison had only made him worse.
Was that because he spent 25 fucking years in jail, which is an insane amount of time to
Yeah.
be locked up in a prison and then expect to acclimate.
What? I guess the case is still going on. I'm pretty sure it might be. Jesus, I feel blue balled right now. What the heck? I don't think this guy is innocent at all. Honestly,
Claim.
must play.
But this is how fast your life can change from just one simple mistake.
What happened, man? That's intriguing. I'm so intrigued by this. What? It just ends like that? Oh man, I guess like it's probably they're probably still going through like the court cases or something, and Sonny hasn't like got the updates for it. So Jesus, I feel like I just finished like a TV show, and it's like I've got so many questions, and none of them were answered during the season, man. Jesus. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.